I knew something was wrong the moment he walked in. Too quiet for an alpha, and too dangerous for a man who was about to buy advertising. We were already 3 minutes into the pitch when the room noticed him before I did. The conference lights felt colder, the glass walls taller, the neon beyond them sharpening into 1,000 blades. I was mid-sentence about reach, impressions, the statistically predictable intimacy of well-timed storytelling, when my own breath went shallow. "Mr. Wei," said the account manager, relief softening every vowel. "Welcome to Viridis." He nodded once. The kind of nod that moved a room without asking it to. He wore a suit that wasn't trying, charcoal, understated, and a watch with no logo. Careful eyes. A posture that made the air behave. I clicked to the next slide like nothing had happened. As you can see, social spend stacks with earned media when the narrative leverages a scarcity cue rather than a dominance cue. "We propose." He took a seat at the far end of the table. Not a word. He might as well have sat on my chest. The campaign was for a security foundation, which was such a polished phrase it could only mean money that traveled with bodyguards. My team had chewed the brief and swallowed the bone. The tagline on the screen, "Safety Gets Smarter," sat in clean sans serif over a cityscape local enough to be flattering and anonymous enough to be useful. I spoke. He listened. Not the usual predator's stare, not even a client's calculation. Something slower, like heat curling up from a night road, the room warping around it. Beneath my cuff, under the clean line of my shirt, the implant pulsed once. A tiny, precise throb under the skin. No. I shifted my weight, willing my heart to stay boring. "Your concept hinges on trust," he said at last. His voice was quiet, low enough to force the room to lean in. Who is trusting whom? I let a smile tilt onto my mouth. Ideally, everyone trusts the brand. That way, we all sleep. A ghost of humor flickered across his face. "Do you sleep, Mr. Elias?" He knew my name. Of course he did. "Like a cat in the sun," I said. "I only look restless." Laughter from the cheaper seats. Account manager, grateful. Designer, relieved. Photographer, texting. He leaned back, hands folded with an ease I did not trust. "The numbers on slide 6 are clean. Your research on regional triggers is better than most." He looked at me then, really looked, and the implant ticked again. 2 beats, too close together. "But the story you are telling is not about trust. It is about control." I kept my smile where it was. Control sells better in Q4 because people are tired. He considered, or because they are afraid. Because we measure fatigue more accurately than fear. I clicked. The next slide, a ladder of bars. Budget versus outcome, my favorite lullaby. "We can walk you through the media split, if you..." He raised his hand a fraction. Not a command. A test to see if I would stop. I did. "I have one question before the split," he said. "What does this room smell like to you?" The table twitched. The account manager glanced at me as if I'd put olfactory in the deck and forgotten to brief him. The designer stifled a grin. I swallowed air that tasted like cold coffee and careful ambition. "Glass," I said, because I was not going to say the word he wanted. "And the kind of carpet that never forgives tea." One side of his mouth tilted. "Humor is a mask. Good thing I collect them." His gaze didn't drop to my throat, didn't linger at my wrists where other alphas have learned to read a pulse. He looked at me the way auditors look at ledgers. The implant fluttered again. Feather light, but unmistakable. A heat touched the back of my tongue like a match struck in another room. "Don't." I brought up budgets, talked CPMs, funnels, attribution windows. I worshipped at the altar of percentages until even my skull felt decimal. By the time I reached the case study, the implant had calmed to a disciplined hum. Wei's expression hadn't changed. He let me finish the cathedral of my logic. "Thank you," he said. Continue. The next 20 minutes should be what I remember, my best lines, my easiest pivots, the neat choreography of a team that had survived more than one executive tantrum. Instead, all I can recall is the sense that something in the room was tilting toward me. That ridiculous instinct, like standing on a ferry and realizing the river wants to keep you. Questions? I asked when we landed the dismount. He took his time. 2. I waited. 1. Your timeline assumes approvals within 48 hours. What happens if the client hesitates? We call it iteration and charge for it. A pause that was almost approval. 2. You said control sells. What do you do when control fails? My smile was clean enough to frame. We pivot to grace. That earned me the smallest, strangest curve of a grin. You hide something rare, Mr. Elias. Only common sense. A beat. Common sense would tell you not to provoke me. Then it's good. My job description omits obedience. Silence. The kind that hummed. Wei stood, the rest of the table ricocheting after him. I'll review the deck tonight, he said. Tomorrow morning, we align on terms. 10 a.m.? The account manager blurted. Wei looked at me. You tell me. 9:30, I said, because I hate men who pretend flex isn't flex. We start on time. I like punctuality. His attention flickered over my left hand, up to my face again. Too steady. It's a kind of respect. Or a threat, I said. He almost smiled. We'll find out. He left the room the way he had entered, quiet, like a door closing in another story. I managed 15 seconds of professional afterglow. Yes, excellent meeting. The synergy is mutual. Of course, we can turn a second concept by Friday. Before I excused myself, the hallway was empty glass and night. The restroom was brighter than honesty. I locked a stall, rolled my sleeve, and looked. The implant sat beneath the skin like a muted star, a coin in flesh, a modest piece of biochemistry that had saved my life more than once. It was fine. No redness, no swelling. But when I pressed a fingertip to it, a pulse answered, sly and undeniable. Screw you, I told a piece of metal. My voice came out thinner than I wanted. Tonight, it had been 5 years since I'd needed a double dose. 5 years since the world had seemed sharper at the edges, since the smell of another person could spike like a flare in fog. I had learned to love the safe blandness of my days, coffee that smelled like coffee, colleagues like colleagues, clients like ratios. My reflection in the stainless steel dispenser watched me refuse to flinch. The door creaked and footsteps paused by the sink. Leon's voice, lazy, a nap folded into vowels. You alive, or should I email flowers? I came out and ran water over fingers that did not need it. We landed the hook. He bites tomorrow. Leon leaned a hip against the counter. Perfect hair, imperfect tie. His eyes were the gray of weather that hasn't decided. Beta to his marrow, and the only person in this building who could tell me the truth without charging hourly. He sniffed once, theatrical. Then he looked at me properly. You're vibrating, he said. Irony made it gentle. I'm always vibrating, not like this. He opened a paper towel with the care of a surgeon. You slipped your dose, or you met someone who smells like a bad idea. Inaccurate, I said. It's an excellent idea, just inconvenient. Leon's smile was quick and unkind to someone who wasn't me. So, the client. Head of some polite security thing, quiet shoes, expensive nothing watch, eyes like the world's longest audit. He looked at you like math. Leon's gaze cooled. And you smell like you remember how to breathe. I smell like soap. You smell like a man who almost turned his head when someone stood too close. He didn't move nearer. He never does. Betas learn other kinds of kindness. I know that face, E. That's the face you had the year you thought you could be normal. The laughter came out before I could stop it, Thin, brittle, funhouse. Relax. He's a client. I'm a professional. The gods of KPIs protect me. The gods of KPIs want your timesheet, not your pulse. He folded his arms, the paper towel immaculate between his fingers. Tell me you'll up your dose tonight. I will, I said, and the implant throbbed once like it was offended. Leon watched my eyes. Don't lie to me. I met his gaze. More than the team did. More than anyone in this building. Once upon a reckless year, he had seen me without the lacquer. I owed him the courtesy of not pretending. I'll check the levels, I said. If the readings are clean, I leave it. And if they're not, then I dream of deserts. No smells, just heat and horizon. He huffed a laugh. You and your poetic survival, it keeps me charming. He leaned in at last. Not enough to crowd, just enough to lower his voice. Listen to me. If he's what I think he is, he'll feel you even if you drown yourself in chemistry. Then I won't drown. I dried my hands. I'll swim faster. That's not how. He cut himself off, file-saving a lecture I'd heard before. Fine. I'll be nearby tomorrow. If you say the word marmalade, I start a fire drill. Marmalade, I echoed. The word tasted like an inside joke we'd never owned in public. He bumped my shoulder with his. You don't have to be brave all the time. Yes, I do, I said, because I couldn't afford any other answer. Back in the conference room, the screensaver had reclaimed the city. My team dispersed in professional relief, chattering about edits and angles and whether Way's quiet was a tactic or a habitat. I stood alone for a breath after the door clicked shut. The glass made mirrors out of everything. My face, a ghost layered over neon. The street below smeared into colors. Blue, electric white, a red that refused to mind its borders. The office smelled like coffee cooling into memory. Beneath it, something thinner, cleaner, almost metallic, the kind of night that makes you want to walk until the city stops pretending it doesn't know your name. My phone buzzed. A calendar alert I had written when I still believed routine could save anyone. 21:30. Dose check. I silenced it without looking. From here, the river looked like melted moonlight. Cars stitched it with patience. Somewhere, someone was ordering noodles, someone was arguing into a phone, someone was falling in love with a lie that would feel like truth until morning. I touched my sleeve, not to the implant, but to the skin that belonged to me. That ancient, stupid wish rose, simple as hunger, mean as hunger, to be known and not owned. No scent should ever betray me, I told the glass, the city, myself. My voice didn't tremble, even if some small, ruined piece of me wants to be caught. Morning made the office look generous. Gold on glass, sun sliding along the conference table, the kind of light that flatters ambition and forgives poor sleep. Viridis breathed coffee and calendars. My team had stacked printouts like offerings. Way arrived at 9:28. Mr. Way, our account manager chirped, voice already rehearsing victory. Shall we? Elias, Way said, as if there weren't other bodies in the room. As if the table and the chairs and the glass had agreed to be backdrop. I put my hands on the deck. Welcome back. We're aligned to finalize scope and deliverables. He set down a slim folio. One change. I'll be your point of contact. I'm assuming full oversight. The sentence should have tasted like budget security. It tasted like a hand closing softly over a wrist. The AM blinked. Of course. That would be ideal. Happy to streamline, I said. My smile measured distance. Direct lines save time. Way's attention grazed my neck and returned to my eyes so quickly I could have pretended I'd imagined it. We'll need direct in more than email. Meetings, I said. Standing Tuesdays. Working docs shared daily. Access to assets. His gaze didn't waver. Access, yes. The room shifted around us, chairs repositioning, paper whispering. The contract read back began. Fees, phases, kill clause. I could have recited it in a coma. Wei initialed with a spare, unbothered hand. When my turn came, I signed where my name had already been printed, as if everything was inevitable and the pen merely admitted it. We shook hands, grip to grip, that frictionless, polite pressure that means nothing, says everything. Congratulations, the AM said. We're thrilled to. Studio at 11, Wei said to me, not unkind. I want to stress test the visuals. I checked my watch. You prefer real light to mock-ups. Real light never lies. A flick of humor. Except, at dawn, then we're safe. He let that stand. The studio was a cool box of shadow and engineered sun. C-stands like elegant skeletons, white backdrops, the faint buzz of equipment warming to its tasks. Photographers thinned their chatter when Wei stepped into the space, as if noise were an indulgence he might confiscate. We set up the key frames for safety gets smarter. We drafted poses that meant autonomy without isolation, authority without threat. Narratives lived inside angles, a hand not quite touching a door, a face turned toward a window like choosing the world. Wei watched from the edge of light, arms easy at his sides, and I watched the way a wire feels watched, tense, tuned, waiting for a pluck. Your freedom motif, he said when I brought over the shot list. It's very curated. That's the job, I said. Freedom sells best when it feels organized. You think choice is packaging. I think choice is a stage. I tapped a frame. We give people something worth performing. He glanced at the screen, where a model stood alone in a grid of luminaires, shadow pooling at her feet. Freedom is an illusion. Because we have constraints, I said, amused. Physics, laws, budgets, mortality. Because our bodies choose us before we choose anything, he said, eyes still tracking the model's shoulders, the tilt of her spine. Even scent chooses for us. I felt the word on my skin like a thread drawn through. Then you're sniffing in the wrong direction, I said. Easy, light, a balloon of a tone I could pop if I needed to. He looked at me then, and the rest of the studio fell away as if someone had turned down the gain. Am I? Depends what you're hunting. Alignment, he said. The word shouldn't have sounded like promise. It did. We moved through frames. I kept my jokes like breadcrumbs, never enough to feed anyone. Wei's proximity was studied. One step closer than polite, one step short of invasive. He asked for small adjustments with the kind of voice people like to obey. Lift the chin. The model, then, quieter. To me. Do you believe this? The shot? Yes. The premise. That control cells? I smiled. In Q4, like oxygen. He considered, and in spring? Grace, I said, and hated how he seemed to recognize the word from last night and file it where he kept useful things. At some point, I reached for the tablet the same moment he did. Our fingers touched. It was nothing. It was everything. The air sealed around that contact like plastic shrinking to heat. I told my body to behave. It listened like a teenager. You're trembling, Wei said. So quietly I felt it more than heard it. From coffee, I said. We brew it to survive budgets. Not disbelieving. Not believing either. His gaze dipped again, fast, courtesy quick, toward the hollow at the base of my throat, the place where too many mistakes begin. Reset on 3, I told the team, and my voice didn't shake. Wins are incremental. He let me step away first. We finished the pull list by 12. The models broke for lunch. The light changed from silver to yellow, a small mercy. Wei stayed, while others scattered, taking up a corner of the CY wall as if it were built to lean him. You perform assurance well, he said. I sell it better. And do you keep it? If the fee clears, I said, try me. He made a sound, cousin to a laugh, almost shy of it. Leon tells me you avoid late lunches. Leon tells you too much. He tells me just enough to schedule correctly. He tipped his head, a suggestion in the angle. Walk me through the revisions in your space. I prefer seeing where people think. I don't host clients. Host me as a problem. He paused. Unless you need to dose. It was a small word, let loose like a test balloon. My blood remembered how to sprint. Schedule first, I said. Then chemistry. And you don't blink, he said, almost to himself. Bad for mascara. He nodded to the door. After you, my apartment pretends to be simpler than it is. Clean lines, books in careful disarray, 2 candles I rotate for plausible deniability, cedar for competence, mint for tenderness. The windows borrow a slice of river and a quantity of sky. The air always holds a little metal, old pipes in an old building. I have never minded. It feels like honesty. Wei stepped in and did not look like a man walking into someone else's life. Shoes at the door. No performance. He took the room in and set it down again without breaking anything. You live like your decks, he said. Minimal, expensive, and more deliberate than you want people to notice. Flatter me more. I took his coat. It was lighter than it looked. Tea or coffee? Neither. Water, then. I'm not thirsty. He stood at the window and watched the river refuse to hurry. The sunlight turned him gold at the edges. This is a good view to decide things. I set the tablet on the kitchen island. We can run through the copy. We will. He did not move. You cover your scent well. The words arrived like a hand on a spine, precise, not cruel. I cover everything well, I said. I opened a cabinet to evaluate tea I would not drink. It's called adulthood. It's called fear. Of the wrong audience? Absolutely. He turned then, and the distance across the room collapsed into something smaller than it had any right to be. I'll be clear, Elias. I'm taking this oversight because I need the campaign flawless. Beat. And because you interest me, professionally, I said. He watched my mouth say it, and decided not to agree. You don't smell like fear. You keep saying that, as if you want me to. I'm not sure what I want. He took a step closer, and my muscles calibrated to it in that treacherous, grateful way bodies have. That's unusual. For you? Yes. Tragic, I said lightly. Shall we look at the taglines before your existential crisis affects ROI? That tugged a smile out of him. Show me. We worked. We really did. He had an ear for language, a clean hatred of vagueness. He cut bloat without mercy, tightened meanings until they hummed. His notes were surgical, his praise stingy and therefore priceless. We argued over a preposition for longer than some relationships last. When I reached for the pencil he was already holding, we both stilled. He didn't let go. The graphite dragged along the paper where our fingers overlapped, a dark line through a brighter sentence. Let go, I said. You first, he said. We released at once, and the pencil rolled, plural motion. He watched it settle at the paper's edge, then looked up with that same intent analysis that had felt like a hand on my pulse since last night. Why do you suppress? I laughed because the alternative was honesty. Because I enjoy my job. I could protect you. From scent? I leaned back on the island, folded my arms, unfolded them. From men who think the world owes them open doors. From the part of me that wants to be lazy, I let my smile sharpen. I protect myself, Mr. Wei. Wei, he said. Use my name. I am. He moved past me to the sink to wash his hands for no reason. Water ran bright and impossible. I watched his wrists, the bare line where watch had been. A scar, pale and old, nicked the inside of one. Not decoration, not new. He saw me see it, and didn't offer a story. Freedom is a stage, he said softly, echoing me, but changing the temperature of the line. But most people don't know who wrote their lines. Then they need better writers. Or better hunters. The word shouldn't have fit the room. It did. It sat in the air like something that had always been there. Leon says you're not a client, I said. He says, you're a hunter waiting for me to blink. Wei's mouth did that almost laugh again, small and private. Leon is observant. I told him I don't blink. You told me too. He tipped his head, considering my face as if it were a map he intended to walk. We'll see. We finished the revises. He gathered his folio, the motions as neat as he was. At the door, he paused with one hand on the frame, the river over his shoulder like a promise someone else had made. You don't smell like fear, he said, quieter than the room. That makes you the most dangerous Omega I've ever met. The sentence landed in my chest and sat there like a warm coin. I'll take that as a compliment, I said. It is. He met my eyes, and a warning. For you, or me. Yes, he said, and left like a page turning. I stood there longer than I meant to, listening to the apartment relearn its own proportions. Mint and cedar and metal, my heartbeat, irresponsible and bright. I put my palm flat over the implant and felt its steady, stubborn hum answer me. Don't blink, I told the window, the river, my reflection. Not even to cry. The glass didn't argue. The city kept moving, and somewhere, very far away and far too close. I thought I heard someone breathe in and decide they liked the air. Indigo bean is a small sun that appears on our street every morning. Brass lamps. Warm wood, a persistent hiss of milk pretending it's steam and not a spell. The door chimes like something cheerful I don't believe in. I come here to make my pulse civilized before the office teaches its spreadsheets. He was already in my seat, my favorite corner. 2 steps from the back exit, 3 from the bar, a wall to my left and a window to my right, was occupied by Wei, who had no business looking like the concept of quiet, had grown a spine and sat down. I stopped dead. Are you stalking me? I asked. Or do you happen to love a decent latte? He looked up from the paper he was not reading. Indigo light kissed the edges of him. Hunters don't drink lattes, he said. We study the prey. A couple at the next table glanced over, half amused, half scandalized. The barista, who knows me by a name I don't use anywhere else, raised an eyebrow. I set my messenger bag on the chair opposite him. Bold of you to confess to a felony before caffeine. Sit, he said, as if that were a gift and not an order. I sat. The table smelled like citrus and sugar. The room smelled like everyone's morning, bright and forgiving. My chest did not get the memo. My heartbeat found a drum, and my implant, steady since the previous day, hummed once to remind me that biology enjoys irony. Wei slid a mug toward me without touching it. You take it black when you plan to fight. I blinked. Do I? A laugh wanted out. That's a myth. You told me myths sell better than truth. Only when the truth makes the brand look poor. He folded the paper smaller. I decided it was less a prop than a shield he didn't need. His eyes were dark in this light. Pupils wide, attention entire. He had that calm again. The one that felt like a lake before a storm has the courage to start. We did our dance. The one we hadn't choreographed and were already too good at. How did you find my seat? I asked. Your city tastes, he said, unhelpful. You face exits. You like to see reflections of people who watch you. You prefer benches to chairs so you can slide away instead of stand. Pretend you didn't rehearse that. I didn't need to. There was a smear of sunlight along the window like butter melting. On the street, a courier threaded through a field of pedestrians with the confidence of a rumor. The door chimed again. The barista handed me the black coffee because she fears me when I have to queue. The models from yesterday, Wei said, almost idly. They stood like they knew how they looked. You stand like you know what you smell like. Please, I said. If I stood like I smelled like anything, HR would schedule a talk with primary colors and tissues. A smile visited and left his mouth. You're a better liar in the studio. I'm a better everything in the studio. We sipped. Outside, a bus groaned. Inside, someone laughed too loud and dropped a spoon. I inhaled steam and was stupidly grateful for the heat. My body, traitor that it is, tracked every inch of space between us. The room wrapped itself in warm amber and invited me to melt. Have you ever wondered? He asked. Not abrupt exactly, but direct enough that the question slid under my ribs. What would happen if you stopped suppressing? My laugh was soft and reckless, a coin I tossed without asking the price. Yes. I'd become your nightmare. He held my gaze. And mine. For someone who claims he isn't thirsty, I said, you drink situations like water. I prefer control, he said. You prefer the illusion of control, I corrected. It's cleaner. Does it comfort you? Depends on the day. I looked at his mouth. Because discipline is mean and I am worse. Today? He waited. Today, it amuses me. We fell into an easy cruelty that felt almost kind, small provocations. Double-edged words, pauses that held more breath than they should. Wei didn't touch me. He didn't need to. Every time he reached for his cup, every time the tendon in his wrist shifted, under skin, my pulse noted it like a secretary with perfect shorthand. I could protect you, he said. Not for the first time, he named it softly, like an idea we both knew better than to trust. From people who think you're their story. I prefer to write my own, I said, and sell it at retail. Expensive retail. You looked at the invoices. I looked at you. The door chimed again. A cooler breath crossed the warm room. For a second, something in the scent of the morning moved like a thread pulled taut. Heat flushed my face. I told myself, it was the coffee. Stress. The part of me that insisted on honesty laughed, mean and fond. I sipped, and the mug trembled against my lip. He saw it. Of course he did. You're reacting, he said so gently it almost counted as mercy. To caffeine, I snapped. To pressure, to the fact that I am sitting in my spot across from a man who talks like a hymn to risk. Indigo Bean isn't big, but we made it feel like all the space in the city belonged to our table. It was a warm place to stand before a cold idea. He checked his watch, like a man remembering he belonged to time. 10 minutes, he said. Then I have a meeting. Tragic. Necessary. He finished his not latte. I finished my black courage. We walked out together, into the kind of morning New Yorkers make postcards about, and then refuse to mail. The sidewalk smelled like bakery and bus. Rain that had the decency to wait until evening, and the too human persistence of people being late. We drifted toward the river out of habit. At the corner, his phone breathed a single buzz. He looked at the screen, and the peace in his face stepped back to make room for an old argument. I have to take this, he said. By all means. He crossed the street to the building I had always assumed was a dental practice or a boutique that sold guiltier chocolate. The glass door opened from the inside. The man who met him had Wei's jawline bulked up with older anger, his eyes sharpened into something that didn't do humor. Same family, wrong climate. I should have kept walking. I should have gone to the office and made edits, and told Leon yes, I was fine, and scheduled new safety for the shoot. Instead, I ducked into the little alley beside the cafe, past the recycling bins, and found a window that didn't believe in curtains. Glass shows you what it wants to show. They hadn't gone far inside. A lobby, done in respectability, gray. Chairs that looked like apologies. A crest on the wall I couldn't focus on long enough to read, without admitting too much. Shen, Wei said. He didn't greet him the way he greets me. There was no soft in it. Shen's voice carried cleanly through the barrier. Some voices are built to cross distance. You forgot who you are, he said. We are hunters, not wardens of feelings. They're not mutually exclusive. That's what people say when they want to be weak. I disagree, Wei said, and there was something like a smile in the word, a small, private rebellion. People say that when they want to be human. Shen stepped too close, a brother's right claimed like property. You're choosing a scent over a duty, as if duty were scentless. Wei tipped his head back, as if ours were clean. You will not defy the clan over this, Shen said. The calm in his tone frightened me more than shouting. We are not a charity for strays. We don't lose sleep over anomalies. Anomalies. I had been called worse by men whose dislike felt like love because it was pointed at me. Wei said nothing for a breath that lasted a year. Then, very softly, maybe that's why you're alone. The slap wasn't hands, it was silence. Shen's jaw moved like he was chewing something too hard to swallow. For a second, I thought he would actually hit his brother in a lobby designed to reassure donors. Instead, he stepped back with dignity that looked painful and said, You have 48 hours to prove you remember your blood. Bring him in, or step aside. Bring him in. The glass had been cold against my cheek. Now it felt too warm. I stepped back into the alley's shade because the sun felt like exposure, and I had used up my ration for the day. Wei watched Shen leave the way a man watches a door he does not intend to close. Then he turned toward the window, toward me, toward nothing, scanning the street with a hunter's steadiness. I went back to the front of Indigo Bean because bad decisions look better under better light. I was in line again by the time he crossed back, calm, rebuttoned, expression neutral to anyone who didn't know the taste of his anger. You take it black when you plan to fight, he said, as if we hadn't just shifted the ground between us into a fault line. Do you want another? I should be at the office, I said. My voice cooperated. Applause for small miracles. We have copy to finalize. We'll do it. Of course we will. We started walking toward Viridis. The city shouldered around us. Traffic argued with itself. A child cried at a dog that wanted to be everyone's. We moved in a column of warmth that felt borrowed. He didn't mention the building. I didn't mention the glass. Do you always look that calm? He asked after a block, not quite curious, not quite accusing. You're too still. As if you were waiting. For a bus, I said. For coffee. For the light to change. For me, he said. We stopped at the corner where a crosswalk refused to admit it was optional. Wei turned, shadows folding clean under his cheekbones. He didn't crowd me. He didn't have to. You're too calm, he said quietly. Like you're waiting for me to catch you. I held his gaze, let the sun chew a line of light across the back of his neck where his hair brushed his collar. I let myself feel the thing I was trying not to name, and then I taught my mouth to be useful. Maybe, I said. I just know you won't be fast enough. The old station breathed like a beast that had learned to live without trains. Rust along the ribs of girders. Dust drifting in slow constellations, the warmth of rented lamps turning the air the color of a peeled orange. Every footstep woke, echoes that remembered timetables better than people. It smelled like metal and old rain, like the city's throat. We chose it for the metaphor. Control and temptation, a place designed to move bodies that now only moved light. I told the team to set the key at 30 degrees, and the fill just mean enough to make shadows honesty. The hum of generators settled into my bones. Wei stood at the edge of the platform, not quite in the cone of the strongest light. He'd rolled his sleeves precisely once. The tendons in his forearms tracked motion as he checked the shot list, then the monitors, then me. Your cathedral, he said, looking up at the arch ceiling as if it could bless us. Do photographers come here to repent? Photographers come here to rent, I said. Repentance is extra. He almost smiled. We were shooting a body alone against a machine, a human spine where rails used to run. Models in structured coats, Collars that suggested promise or restraint depending on whose childhood you'd had. The narrative, you can choose the train or yourself. The subtext, we know which you were taught to choose. The lights made heat where there should have been cold. I could feel the hum through my shoes. I checked my tablet. My hand left a print on the glass like an argument. Start with frame 14, I told the photographer. Move the key 6 inches right. I want the cheekbone to look like it learned the word no the hard way. Copy, she said, liking me more when I was mean. Wei watched me build a story out of angles. It's the only church I serve. He didn't interrupt. He would say one quiet sentence, and the room would obey physics differently. Chin down a breath, he told the model. Think of a promise you didn't make. We made a good team. I hated that more than I could say. By noon, the heat felt personal. Sweat collected politely along my spine. The air had thickened from dust and effort. My implant throbbed once, twice. Mild disapproval like a supervisor who finds you on a lunch break 3 minutes early. I ignored it. I was busy saving us all from mediocre copy. Reset for 15, I called. Different coat. Leave the hands bare. I want the wrists to look like they've learned both surrender and refusal. Wei moved closer to me to see the monitor. We stood shoulder to shoulder in the red sunglow of the rented lamps. He was the temperature of someone who made other people imagine fireplaces in winter. I could feel his breath decide not to touch my cheek. You're warmer than usual, he said. Lamps, I said. And your personality, you should step out for air. You should grow a second personality. Some of us prefer to be legible. Your brother certainly does. Is quiet then. The old station swallowed the word brother and handed it back as an echo. Other. Wei didn't look at me. He looked at the model's mouth, the way it held tension like a coin. Frame, he said to the photographer, and the moment folded itself and sat down. The next setup required me to walk the length of the platform to correct a stubborn light that thought it knew better. I did it myself, because control is cheaper when I don't pay extra hands. On the way back, something in the air blinked. No, something in me. A match struck underwater. An impossible flare. It was small. It was enormous. A slip in the discipline that has been my only god for 5 years. Heat rose behind my sternum with the lazy inevitability of a tide that had found the moon again. No, I closed my mouth against nothing. I told my body a story where it obeyed me. My body listened the way a cat listens to a vacuum, resentful, amused, not remotely convinced. So, Wei turned before I reached him. His face didn't change. Everything about him did. He stepped closer into the light and then stopped exactly far enough away that I could tell myself he was being polite. That, he said, not touching me with voice or hands. There you are. The word you slid through my skin like a key. Here I am, I said lightly, which came out like the opposite. Without a PowerPoint. It's you without filters, he said. Without tablets. His eyes did not drop. They stayed on my face like my mouth might say truth if he stared long enough. That's you. I am not a thing you can sniff, I said, because anger makes good scaffolding when my lungs threaten to forget work. I know, he said, almost steady and almost not. I'm saying you deserve not to disappear into your own disguise. I wanted to laugh, and it came out as a breath that hurt. Back to work, I said, because my voice was what I could control. We pretended to shoot. The model moved obediently through the frames. The camera made its soft, contented noises. The generator hummed like a preacher. The entire room carried on the ritual of making something look better than the truth without letting it become a lie. I have always loved that line. It cut me, then. The humidity made my shirt cling where no one else was allowed to look. Sweat traced the lines it had memorized. The air was the wrong temperature for sanity. I could feel my scent trying to stand up after years kneeling. It felt like a hand I didn't remember holding. Stop, Wei said to the room, and they did. The gaffers, the PA, the photographer with her finger still half on the shutter. He didn't raise his voice. He brought the world down to it. He stepped once, a full stride to close most of the distance between us. His eyes were not kind and not cruel. They were something like startled. "You're sweating," he said, as if that were evidence, and not from heat. "Everything here drips," I said. "Look at the pipes, Elias." He said my name like it was a tool he had just realized could cut. "I told you," I said, trading humor for teeth. "I'm not a thing. I'm trying not to reduce you to that," he said, as if admitting defeat in a war I hadn't allowed him to declare. "I'm failing." I might have stepped closer. I might have stepped back. The lights hummed, and the dust made its slow galaxies, and somewhere water dripped. At a patient rate, like a promise someone had written down in a ledger. "I don't want," he began. "To hunt me," I said. "To own me? To fix me? Choose a verb and I'll write the tagline." His jaw worked. He kept his hands visible and empty. "To be near you," he said finally, without lying to myself about why. For a longer second than is advisable, we stood inside a small, private weather. The room didn't touch us. I could feel the air where he wasn't touching me. My mouth misbehaved. My head leaned before I could assign it the blame. He bent. It would have been easy, in that particular gravity, to seal the argument with the kind of kiss people call mistakes and then use to rewrite entire lives. I turned my head. "Don't," I said, and it was soft. "You're a hunter. I'm not prey." He stopped with a control that made his muscles into a lesson. He did not exhale. He let the moment sit between us like a glass that would break if we named it. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For reminding me I'm not who they made me to be." "Give it time," I said. It came out more tired than I planned. We went back to work. We even got good frames, the kind that make clients sign checks with suddenly confident wrists. But we were no longer pretending, we were making the same thing. I was building proof that control was beautiful. Wei was learning the shape of not controlling. When the last look cleared and the team wrapped chords into ordered loops, when the light became less red-orange and more gold, when the station sighed as if the heat had gone home, Wei handed the PA a list of safeties and sent the photographer to pull selects. He waited, then found me by a pillar that had known older arguments. "My brother came to town," he said without preface. "I noticed," I said, before I remembered I wasn't meant to have. He studied my face. "You notice things you shouldn't. You tell me things you shouldn't." He took a breath, like choosing. He asked me to find and isolate an unmarked omega. An anomaly the clan wants contained. Contained. We build campaigns around softer words for cages. My palms went cold, and then hot enough to embarrass me. "Congratulations," I said. My laugh had broken glass under it. "You just completed your assignment." "Don't," he said. "Don't what?" "Provide a clean ending for your report? I'm efficient." "You like efficiency. I like you alive," he said, and I hated him for saying it well. "You like me obedient," I said. "Alive is just the format." He took the insult and didn't try to trade it for a softer one. His wrist twitched where a scar had slept this whole time. "I don't know how to want both," he said. "I'm trying. And I'm not a training field." Heat flushed my face. Rage does that when it climbs out of hurt to put on shoes. If your brother says bring him in and you bring me in, we both know what happens next. If you don't, you cut yourself from blood you were told was the only thing worth worshipping. I made my mouth smile because sometimes cruelty wears the mask of mercy and gets results. Either way, you get to cry about it in rooms that smell like leather. I get a label and a lock. He didn't flinch. He looked at me as if I had the right to say it. That made it worse. "Come with me," he said. "Not to them. Away from them." "You'll protect me?" "Yes." "From what?" He didn't lie. "From me." The platform had cooled into evening. The light had gone from peeled orange to something closer to a bruise. The team peeled away with boxes and bags and relief. Generators whined down to sulks. In the silence, old water remembered how to drip. I stepped past him. The distance between us widened with obscene gentleness. He let it. "Don't run," he said. "I'm not running." I turned so the lamps didn't have to pretend they weren't art. "I'm leaving the room before the door locks." "Elias, you should go write your report," I said, and smiled without using my eyes. Make it sound like control. He didn't touch me. He didn't say my name again. He stood in the rust-red light and watched me walk into the station. Better darkness, the kind that doesn't pretend to be anything else. I didn't look back. I have learned to break line of sight when it hurts. The arches swallowed me. The floor was a map of old spills gone to mirror. My reflection lived in every shallow puddle, a ghost in motion. A train would have been nice then, noise big enough to make thought shut up. My footsteps moved like someone else was setting them down. I let the station tell me where the exits used to be, and chose none of them. A rat made a sound like a whisper. The city above me kept breathing. I could taste metal at the back of my tongue. The implant had calmed again. A steady, stubborn hum as if to say, "We will do what we always do. We will survive the day." I put my hand to the slick cold of a pillar, lifted my chin to the heat-blurred light one last time, and said to the space that held my shape without believing in it, "I'm not hiding anymore. I'm just disappearing." Stormlight turns the office into a ship. Silver on the glass, blue in the halls, the hum of HVAC arguing with distant thunder. After midnight, Viridis shrinks to bones and electricity, the polite glow of exit signs, the reliable patience of a copier asleep under a tarp, the city outside smearing itself into the windows like watercolor that refuses to dry. I stopped taking the tablets 2 days ago. The first day was noise. A bright ache at the base of my skull, a film over my tongue like old pennies, a restlessness that made stairs look edible. The second day was texture. The world came back in layers, the mint of my own toothpaste with the metal of pipes, coffee like burnt, sugar. Instead of office religion, Leon's detergent, a tame citrus over skin that has its own weather. Tonight it is rain. A storm marching up the river with enough vanity to announce itself to every window. Lightning bleaches the conference room and hands me my own bones. Leon sits on the table with his shoes off and his sleeves rolled, as if friendship were a kind of emergency he keeps supplies for. He's made me drink water until my stomach sloshes and fed me crackers like I'm a fragile deity who doesn't know about salt. "How do you feel?" he asks, for the 7th time, not because he needs the data, but because saying the question out loud wears a path we can follow back to sense, like a radio that found all its stations at once. I press my thumb into the inside of my wrist until pulse becomes the only language. Like my body is an apartment. A previous tenant left a note in. Leon smiles without showing teeth. "You always smelled like someone who survived. And you smell like the person who helped." The compliment lands between us with a soft clink. He doesn't pretend it isn't heavy. It's not just the tablets. It's the decision. Survival had a scent I could live with. Bland, tidy, rentable. Choice has an odor of wet pavement and risk. "Talk to me," he says, when my silence starts to sound like a cliff. "About what?" "About the storm," he says, like a game. "City rinsing itself," I say. Wires singing. The river flirting with the museum's steps again. "About you." I look at the window because it's easier to look at my reflection than at someone who knows I'm lying. "I smell like a room after you blow out the candle." He considers that. Warm and honest and temporary. "Don't do that." He nudges my ankle with his toes. "Don't make yourself a season." "What am I?" He doesn't blink. Occasional lightning. I laugh, and it's real enough to startle me. Dramatic. You hired me. The elevator dings somewhere down the hall. Not our floor. Someone else's late vow. The storm leans into the building again, presses its ear to the glass. You can still change your mind, Leon says. Dose, sleep, pretend. We are very good at pretending. I'm tired, I say, and all the jokes fall off the sentence like leaves. Not sleepy. Tired. He nods. Okay. Do you resent me? I ask, because I'm crueler with the people who love me. For making this harder than it needs to be, Leon lifts one eyebrow. I have watched you make coffee harder than it needs to be. That's not an answer. He exhales. I'm terrified for you, and I'm proud of you. And I want to strangle you for doing it at quarter end, a beat, but I don't resent you. You didn't choose a body that other people think belongs to them. You did, I say. He tips his head, amused and tired. I chose to be near you. That's worse. We sit with the kind of quiet that puts chairs back on the floor. The air conditioner clicks. Lightning makes the carpet briefly look like snow. The building's smell shifts with the rain. The glue in the drywall wakes up. The dust in the vents remembers. It is ancient. The lobby's lilies donate their sweetness to the stairwell and then beg forgiveness. Eat another cracker, Leon says, when my fingers start their tremor. I'll make more tea. You're a beta, I tell him, as he stands and stretches like a cat. But you act like a priest. Priests usually ask for money. He moves for the kitchenette. I only want your calendar. Greedy. Efficient. He stops in the doorway, the office light making a gentle halo of dust around him. He's going to come. I know. He won't be alone. I know. I'll be with you. He doesn't say I'll stand between. Betas learn to survive with other verbs. There's a small plastic fan on the credenza, the sad kind that office managers buy in bulk. I turn it on, point it at my face, close my eyes, and let air pretend it is wind. In that tiny imitation of weather, I can smell myself. It's not sweet, not the bakery milk fiction alphas like to write for us. It's salt and clean, and a little like the first sip of cold water after you've been too careful too long. If I were kinder to myself, I would call it bracing. If I am honest, I call it home. The building chirps its little alarm because the front door has opened without an ID. Leon is back in the room before my throat can decide between iron and glass. He says. We're on. We are. Footsteps find us, not hurried, not polite. A group moves like it has rehearsals, like it could perform anywhere and make the room believe it belonged to them. The storm presses its face to our windows as if to watch. They don't knock. The central hall fills with men whose coats are expensively unmemorable. At their center, Shen. He is a weather system that never learned to laugh. Wei is with them, and the part of my chest that refuses to be rational relaxes and tightens at once. Elias, Shen says. He doesn't ask which one I am. He smells like old leather and rules. Gentlemen, I say, standing up, because sitting would make me into someone else. Leon stands too. He is nothing like a shield, and exactly like one. We're closed, I add, because I can't not. Shen ignores it. His gaze slides over Leon the way men like him are taught to slide over betas, then returns to me. We have received a report, he says. An anonymous submission regarding an unmarked Omega operating in this office. The email, Chris, with his immaculate punctuation and his hatred of my existence disguised as collegial oversight. Lightning turns the windows into mirrors. I watch myself choose not to look at Wei. Anonymous cowards, Leon says, so mildly it almost sounds like weather. We have so many fans. Shen lifts his chin a fraction. We are not here to debate loyalty. We're here to enforce safety. The word lands sticky. Elias, you are coming with us. Now. Arrest, Wei says, and it's barely a word. A diagnosis. He steps in front of me with emotion so simple, it refuses drama. He doesn't touch me. He simply decides where his body belongs. Something inside me stops bracing. Something else begins. Shen's mouth tightens. Step aside. No. You always choose the weak, Shen says. And because he's a man who believes words are weapons, he throws it like one. Wei's voice doesn't rise. It lowers. The room has to come closer to hear it. No, he says. I choose those who smell like the truth. It's melodramatic. It's ridiculous. It's mine. I step out from behind him before the room can make me into an absence. My hands are steady. My breath is the kind you can live on. I have spent years rounding my edges so I can be rented. I let them sharpen. I stand up straight. I don't hide my wrists, or the hollow of my throat, or the place where my pulse betrays how alive I am. I let the storm in through the open slice of window I insisted on years ago against facility's advice. The air in the room lifts. The scent moves first like a rumor, faint, curious, then like a forecast you can trust. Fresh, not sweet. Salt and rain and the clean iron of a key. It lands on my tongue like the first day after fever. Leon swallows and looks at me like he is trying not to cry in a meeting. Shen inhales. His eyes betray him. He masks it with disdain so quickly I almost respect the craft. This, he says, is precisely why we exist. Because the world is alive? I ask. Because anomalies break systems. Maybe the system needs breaking. My voice is steady without effort. It surprises me. And then it doesn't. Maybe the world smells like this, and you're the one who forgot. Elias, Wei says, and his palm finds my shoulder, present, not heavy. Exactly as much pressure as a hand that means with and not over. Warmth radiates up into my neck, down into my ribs, until I can't tell whether the storm is outside or in me. Now you smell like yourself, he says, and there is something like awe in it. And I don't need to catch you. Lightning makes an argument outside. Thunder agrees. The office lights flicker, come back in a softer mood. For all his talk, Shen doesn't make a move. He is a man who believes in forms, and the form says, show procedures, say the right words, make the room believe you're inevitable. He opens his mouth with something official in mind. Wei speaks first. I'm done, he says, and the sentence is a clean cut. With this, he gestures, and it doesn't need precision. With you. With a job that confuses hunting with justice. Shen's brows climb not in surprise, but in the long, steady climb toward fury. You would forfeit your name for a cent. Wei glances at me. For a person, he says. For my own, you will be stripped, Shen says, of rank, of standing. Strip me, Wei says, and if there's fear, he wears it the way he wears. His shirt, tailored, invisible to anyone who doesn't know where to look. Procedures move fast when they're meant to humiliate. Shen recites something I refuse to keep. A line of words only men who love rules can love. He collects Wei's badge, the small silver knife every hunter carries like a religion, the cord that means membership, and, in certain rooms, mercy. Wei offers each with hands that do not shake. The room watches like an audience mistakes a ritual for theater and feels sophisticated for doing so. You'll regret this, Shen says, and it's almost tender, which is the scariest way to threaten someone. Maybe, Wei says, but I'll regret it on my own terms. Shen turns to me as if he had been patient with a child and will now be adult. Last time, he says. Come quietly. No, I say, and my body, traitorous instrument that it is, rewards me with a steadier breath than any I took today. I'm staying. You endanger others. I help build campaigns, I say. I make photographs pretty and words honest. The people you should fear don't smell like anything at all. For a moment something like confusion brushes Shen's face. It doesn't stay. He gestures to his men. We'll be in touch, he says, choosing bureaucracy over spectacle for now. Your anonymity is temporary, Elias. We don't misplace what we mean to find. You already did, Leon says, so sweetly it could rot teeth. Shen gives him the look men like him give betas who choose to exist. Then he leaves, his men folding around him like a coat. Their absence sucks at the room the way waves pull at ankles. The storm makes one last declarative sentence and rolls its shoulder on toward the ocean. Silence, then. Not empty. Possible. Wei's hand is still on my shoulder. He seems to realize it at the same time I do, and lifts it as if placing it down again would be an apology. I meant it, he says. No preface, no excuse. I don't need to catch you. I know, I say. The admission tastes like metal and rain. Thank you. For what? For choosing. My mouth curves. Even if your timing is terrible for fourth quarter, he smiles, small and genuine, like lightning that decided to be kind. I am learning. Leon clears his throat because he is a gentleman and also because he wants to live. I'm going to pretend to make tea, he announces, and actually start the legal war we will inevitably have to wage. Also, congrats on quitting your terrifying job, Mr. Wei. We have a temp agency on speed dial. Leon, Wei says, with careful respect. Don't Leon me. You can call me when you're ready to discuss crisis comms. He squeezes my forearm on his way past, quick and grounding. Under his breath, you smell right. Do I whisper. You do. He grins into his shoulder and vanishes. We are alone with the copier, the storm's aftertaste, the polite hum of a building that believes nothing truly outside its maintenance plan can happen in it. You're free, Wei says, and he says it like he's testing the fit of the word. I am, I say, and I don't make it smaller. The window has stopped trying to be a mirror. It is just glass now, showing me a city that remembers how to shine after it's rinsed. For the first time since I thought being invisible would save me, he nods. I lost something. I know. It was the only way I knew how to be good. Then maybe it wasn't goodness. The sentence isn't unkind. Maybe it was obedience in a better suit. He smiles like a bruise that's turning yellow, softening without forgetting. Teach me the difference. Start by being on time, I say, because humor is the only way I know to carry joy without dropping it. 9:30 tomorrow. We have copy to finish. Freedom smells like you, he says, trying the line on like a coat. It does tonight, I say. We'll see about tomorrow. He looks at me and the office, and the line of silver the river makes when the sky has forgiven it. He steps back only when he is sure I can stand without his shadow. Good night, Elias. Good night, Wei. He leaves without ceremony. The air shifts with the easy physics of one body exiting a room. My own scent lingers. Salt, clean, rain stitched to iron. The storm moves on, leaving the windows freckled with its brief possession. I stand in the center of the hall, a human in a building designed for numbers, and I breathe like I mean it. Morning, after rain settles on the city like forgiveness. The sidewalks are swayed. Trees remember how to look polished. Even the river decides to hold still long enough to admire itself. In this kind light, the office looks like a place where good decisions happen on purpose. 3 weeks. The storm burned itself out. The clan receded to paperwork and promises. Viridis did what it does best. Turned a feeling into a campaign. Smanos Like You launches at noon. The tagline hangs on the main screen in a font that doesn't apologize. Beneath it, a spread of images we wrestled into honesty. Hands unbuttoning a cuff to feel air, a mouth soft. Because it doesn't owe anyone an expression. Light on skin like permission instead of surveillance. It shouldn't work. It works. Don't get smug, Leon says, which is how he says I'm proud of you when there are witnesses. He stands at my desk with a reusable cup and an expression that claims he invented mornings. Analytics want your attention. And, I want a raise. You already got a raise. I want another one. He leans in and inhales, not like an alpha, not like a thief. Like a friend checking the weather. You still smell right. Like the campaign? Like a person. He taps the screen. And congratulations on writing a line that makes men cry in bathrooms. Only Q3 men, I say. Q4 men cry at spreadsheets. He grins. I sent the updated media plan. The client approved the extra buy. The client does not exist, I remind him. He resigned. Then the agency of record approved it, Leon says. And the man who formerly approved things sent a text that said good, which, from him, is a sonnet. Across the room, Chris pretends to not watch us. He's perfect as always, tie innocent, hair repentant, smile edged like a paper cut. He has never forgiven me for not failing in the ways he planned. Morning, Chris, I call. His eyebrow registers the greeting as an act of war. Campaign's decent, he says. A little personal. Thank you, I say. We're leaning into human. It's trending. He makes a note he'll never read. His cologne smells like ambition with a sugar problem. I prefer the air today. Coffee, rain drying on concrete, people who didn't expect to like their Tuesdays. We run the final checks. Q&A signs off. The countdown timer hits 0, and the first ad goes live on a screen the size of a building. On cue, our office inhales like a choir and exhale like rent was due yesterday. I watch the first comments slide in on the dashboard. Feels real. I can breathe. Is it weird that this line makes me think of walking home after a storm? The numbers behave. The words behave better. Coffee? Leon asks. You're about to get trapped in congrats and questions. I nod. Same place? Where else? He winks. Don't bring a hunter back this time. HR is exhausted. I'll bring a croissant. Progress. I take my umbrella, even though the sky is as honest as it gets. Habit's a kind of religion. I keep what doesn't hurt me. Indigo bean is itself. Brass lamps, wood that remembers hands, the door chime ringing like a small, optimistic bell. The barista lifts a hand and starts pouring black before I say it. I love being predictable where it doesn't matter. Wei is at our table. He sits easy, not like a man waiting for judgment, but like a man learning the grammar of ordinary. The quiet is still there, his native country, but it's warmer now, summer instead of stone. When he looks up, his mouth does the small private smile it learned only recently. You're in my seat again, I say, for tradition. You're late, he says, for the same reason. Launching a campaign. I set my umbrella against the wall. Changing culture. Resisting pastries. Heroic. Tragic. He glances at the mug the barista places between us. You still take it black when you plan to fight. I plan to celebrate. I tilt my head. So I brought you a latte. He blinks. And it's nearly funny. Hunters don't drink lattes, he says on reflex. Then corrects himself. I'm not a hunter. Right, I say. Then you can admit you like foam. He accepts the cup, like it might reveal something important about him. You're sure this is not a trap? If it is, it's delicious. I settle opposite him. The room smells like cinnamon and relief. My body behaves, content with oxygen. Are you sleeping? Better, he says. I can't hear the clan in my head when it rains. Convenient, I say. It rains a lot. Weather, he says, deadpan. My new religion. We drink. Silence sits with us and doesn't demand attention. People talk around us. A child in a raincoat stamps in a ghost puddle. A man on a phone laughs like he owes someone money and isn't going to pay. Two women argue with kindness. Outside, the city runs a hand through its hair. You quit loudly, I say. I quit correctly, he says. Loudly came after, do you miss it? He considers his cup the way some men consider their gods. I miss believing rules could make me good, He lifts his eyes. But I don't miss confusing obedience with love. That's advanced literacy. I had a tutor. I don't blush. I let the room do it for me. How's the agency? Smaller than the clan, he says, amused. Louder emails, fewer knives. You'll thrive. I'll learn, he says, and the words choose a seat inside my ribs. We idle on the shoreline where banter becomes confession. Our jokes wear lighter shoes now. They don't have to sprint toward survival. You smell like rain, he says at last. Unapologetically simple. Convenient, I say. Marketing alignment. No, he says. Like you, without caution, the compliment is not a door. It's a window open just enough to let in air. I breathe. It's coffee and damp wool and human. No fear. No chase. My implant hums its steady, boring hum. Guardian, not warden. Do you ever miss the hunt? I ask, because clarity is my favorite cruelty. He thinks so long, I almost withdraw the question and wrap it in something easier. I miss the part where finding felt like purpose, he says finally. But now I like the part where staying feels like it. That's very inconvenient for my schedule. I can be on time, he promises, grave, and ruins it by smiling. Prove it, I say. Walk with me. We leave the heat and bells of Indigo Bean and step into a city that decided to be kind for a few hours. The sky is the color of a postcard. The streets hold the last wet like an afterthought. Our reflections stitch themselves to storefronts and fall away as we pass, patient as dogs. We don't say much. Words are for when you can't stand each other's breathing. We can. On the bridge, the river stretches into a sheet of bright metal, dented by wind, banners from a gallery opening flex and sigh. A bus sighs back. The gold of the morning slides along the rail and asks to be touched. I don't, because I've learned what wants to fall. Wei's shoulder is almost near mine. He's careful now, not because he's afraid, but because he knows he could never forgive himself if he taught me to be. You've seen me angry, I say, watching a gull bully its own reflection. You've seen me polite. You've seen me lie without blinking. You've seen me forget how to breathe and then remember. Are you bored yet? Not likely. Statistically, men get bored. Statistically, he says, men don't resign a religion for a sentence. What sentence? He looks at me. Freedom smells like you. That's a tagline. It's a vow. I didn't write it for you. I know. We stop at the center of the bridge, where the crosswind likes to test loyalties. I lean on the rail. Not enough to risk, just enough to pretend I could. The city holds itself in the water like a secret it's ready to tell. Do you regret it? I ask. Any of it. Regret is a poor trainer, he says. I prefer hunger. For what? For staying, he says. Then, less carefully, with a kind of softness that cuts cleaner than any blade, with you. The words set themselves carefully in me and decide to stay. Somewhere across the river, a billboard wakes up, its screen warming like a sunrise too punctual to be natural. Our campaign begins to speak in public. A line in white letters breathes onto blue. Freedom smells like you. I laugh, because I am sentimental against my will. Subtle. It's effective, he says. You really do like it. I don't like it, he says, eyes on the river. I believe it. The wind turns warm, the particular miracle of a city deciding to be kind. I think of fried eggs and deadlines and printers that jam when they sense joy. I think of Leon, who will scold me for being late and then text a knife emoji at our lawyer because love wears emojis now. I think of Chris, who will slide a compliment into a complaint and call it balance. I think of the office with its silver lights and the station with its orange ones and a man who didn't kiss me because I asked him not to. Do you want to get breakfast? Wei says, or do we dramatize our hunger until noon? Terrible choice, I say. Clearly both. He offers his arm. I don't take it. I walk beside it. He learns the shape of my no and understands it is a yes to something else. On the far side of the bridge, a bus shelter holds a smaller version of our ad. A woman in a coat looks like she taught herself how to breathe last week. Under her, City for Two. Coming soon. I snort. That was not in my media plan. Consider it a sequel, Wei says. We walk. The water keeps our secrets without effort. Somewhere, a violinist finds an underpass and makes it a chapel. Pigeons hold committee. A dog drags a man toward a bakery as if their marriage depends on it. I look at the gold in the river and the gold on the rail and the gold around the edges of the face beside me, and I think, not dramatically but precisely, we are tired of being hunters. It's time to be. We go find eggs, and the city, greedy and generous, keeps becoming itself.